Hey guys, welcome to episode number 549. Today is Monday, so it's Update Monday, and today we are doing something very exciting. We are filling the 1,000 gallon tank that's sitting behind my greenhouse. It's gonna put us one step closer to filling it full of fish and getting it ready, hooked up, and operational. So come along with me and learn how to be a better aquarist. Alright guys, and here is the 1,000 gallon tank full of water. Now, this took about 3 hours to fill, and while it was filling, you saw I sort of finished the edge a little bit around the tank. I tried to get at least 2 feet of space here leveled out and tamped down flat, so that I could at least walk around this entire tank without tripping over piles of stones and whatnot. But as you can see, I still have quite a bit of material left over, and we will be dealing with that at a later time. But for now, the tank is full. I'm super excited. I do have quite a bit of debris down in there. We will be fishing that out soon. I threw this board in there just in case any frogs decided to jump in, you know, while we're setting stuff up. But here it is, 1,000 gallons of water, 8-foot diameter tank, 4 feet deep. This thing is almost the size of a swimming pool. It's crazy. And some of our next steps are going to be to connect this 1,000 gallon tank to the greenhouse. This is the first stages of the aquaponics setup now. You know, we've got the main components in play. We've got the greenhouse, and we've got the tank in the ground with water. So you'll see I dug out a little notch over here, and essentially what I'm planning on doing is putting a water pump in the tank, pumping water up. I'm going to put a couple PVC pipes through the ground here, and then I'll bring them up inside the greenhouse and run them over here so that I can spill water in each one of these 60 gallon Laguna tubs that are in the greenhouse, and all of those are going to overflow, and then that water is going to be filtered probably indoors and then return back out here and dump back into the pond. Now, we've got a lot of options when it comes to finishing the sides of this tank, and essentially what I'm thinking of doing is perhaps putting in a very, very small water feature. We've got a good, I don't know, foot to 18 inches of height here. that we can play with, and the water volume isn't going to be spectacular. It's not going to be like a giant koi pond with a giant waterfall, but the water that returns to this tank could be a small water feature of some sort. That's certainly a possibility. So we've got to consider how we want that water to return. But you know, the water that's getting pumped up is probably just going to be a PVC pipe, and we're going to try to hide that the best we can. The ground around this thing is probably the next piece that we need to tackle, certainly before it gets too cold out, because we want this thing as insulated as possible. When we put fish in here, we're going to want to put them out here year round, and there's a good amount of like thermal energy that the water will get from the ground over the winter time. But I think what I'm gonna have to do is put at least 2 feet of 2-inch styrofoam all the way around this tank. And so that's one reason I've tried to flatten this area out, is because I'm gonna try to wedge 2-inch pieces of styrofoam that are 2 feet long underneath the lip of that tank, and that's sort of how I'm going to get a level surface all the way around with that styrofoam. And then I think I might put big paver stones or something like that all around it. You can imagine when this thing is completely finished, I may also be able to put some like retaining wall blocks sort of in a circle around this walking area as well. And then I might be able to make like a ledge type seat out of large pieces of stone as well, so that people can sort of sit and enjoy the pond and looking down at the fish. So in terms of fish, this is the big decision, right? This is what I need your suggestions for. We are in Massachusetts, so koi are an option, goldfish are an option, tilapia unfortunately are not an option. I believe it requires a permit, so we're going to stay away from tilapia. Essentially, we have the ability to go with either an ornamental fish like a koi or a goldfish, or an edible fish, and you know, it needs to be something that can survive all 4 seasons out here. Hopefully, with the insulation on the sides and the fact that it's 4 feet deep, and by keeping an air stone going in the middle of this tank, hopefully this should not freeze completely over the winter. We do get some fairly mild winters, and we also get some fairly cold winters, so we'll have to see and plan accordingly. But for the meantime, I think what I'm going to do is put my feeder goldfish and a couple of the baby koi that I got from my friend Gary, put those out here just for the season and see how they do. They're going to be my test pilots before I buy anything sort of expensive, just to see, you know, how cold this water actually gets, how well they do throughout this winter. And then when we get into the spring, that's when we can really do some legitimate stocking of this pond. It is massive. It can fit a lot of fish. And the one thing I need to be careful of, though, is not overloading this fall, because this system isn't even operational yet, right? It's just a tub of water right now. But when we have plants growing in the spring and the summer, and it's a full-fledged aquaponics system, then you know, we'll be in business, and we can certainly add quite a bit more fish. So what am I going to detoxify this water with? Well, here in my town, we have chloramines in the water, and if you are on well water, you probably don't have anything in your water. If you're on city water, you either have chlorine or chloramines in your water. Chlorine will usually evaporate after a few days, and then you can just add fish straight to it, but chloramines do not go away, and so usually it's recommended to detoxify your water. I have Seachem Safe here, and I also have Seachem Prime. These are my 2 favorites when it comes to this task, and a lot of times people ask, what's the difference between Prime and Safe? And the simple answer is Prime is the liquid version and Safe is the powdered version. Essentially, to detoxify 1,000 gallons of water, this entire tub, I need to use less than 1 teaspoon of Safe, which is absolutely ridiculous. This right here is a 1/4 teaspoon. I probably need to use somewhere between 3 and 4 of these 1/4 teaspoons to detoxify all of this water. And when it comes to Prime, I think I would need to be doing around 10 capfuls. So it's a pretty big difference, especially when you're dealing with large volumes of water. So there it is. That's the difference. You can probably start off with Prime, but when you get into larger fish rooms and large bodies of water, the Safe is going to save you money on shipping costs, because you're not buying the water, you're just buying the active ingredients in a powdered form. We do have a number of rocks that fell down into here, and we have some sand from the setup of this pond. I'll be jumping in here in a few minutes to take care of that, and we may need to rig up some sort of vacuum siphon device in the coming weeks to get the rest of that out of there. But there we go. There it is, set up in all of its glory. As I was digging, I did encounter some rusty metal, and this area was all plants. It was just all of this cover plant all across here. But a long time ago, it seems like someone either had a fire pit right here, or they had some sort of little dumping area, because I managed to pick all of this metal and glass out of the ground, and it was all in one spot. Pretty nasty stuff. It's definitely not something you want to step on, and digging all that up was a real pain. And if you ever wonder why it's not a good idea to bury trash like that, it's because of situations like this. You never know when someone's going to dig up the ground, and if they're going to cut themselves or whatnot. And when this stuff is just mixed into loose dirt and gravel, you end up having a complete mess. Like this dirt in the wheelbarrow is a mix of glass shards and rusty metal, and all of this dirt is basically useless because I don't want to get that stuff all over the place. So it just makes a mess, and it's a headache for someone else. So definitely don't do that. But let's go inside the greenhouse real quick, and we can see the progress and the stuff going on in here. It is 1,000,000 degrees outside today, and it's even hotter in this greenhouse. I got the doors wide open, I've got the windows wide open. Let's take a look at the plants. We've got our water lettuce that's actually doing better than I expected. I haven't fertilized the water at all, and the leaves are still green. It actually looks like there's some new leaves that are starting, so these things are hanging on, which is surprising. I didn't think they were going to get enough light. I thought they were going to slowly die back, but I was proven wrong. I was able to go on a kayaking trip recently, and I found some of this stuff floating in the water. I'm not 100% sure what it is, but this was out in the Charles River, of all places. So I've got a little bit of that. I put some more over here in these little baskets. It kind of looks like hornwort, but it could very well be something else. Probably invasive, but if you guys know what that is, let me know. Water hyacinth, again, it's doing, I guess, just as well as the water lettuce. We do have some new growth, like this lighter colored leaf. We've got some other like bog plants and stuff. These were like closeouts. Basically got that stuff for free. So we'll see if it holds on or not. This sensitive plant is my new favorite floating plant of all time, by far. Out of everything in here, this is the thing that is kicking butt, taking names, and growing like crazy. And it doesn't mind the lack of direct sunlight in here, which is a big bonus, because this area is never going to get a lot of direct sunlight, but all of these lighter colored leaves here, this is all new growth, and this is all within the last couple weeks. This stuff is awesome. I love it. I love how the fact that at nighttime the little leaves close up, and then in the daytime they spread back out, and just the fact that, you know, it's growing and it's not complaining, and super low maintenance. I love this stuff. This is the stuff that I think I'm going to try to keep and propagate as much of, because it seems like it's the one that's doing by far the best. We got some more bog plants here. We may move some of this stuff out over into the big pond at a later time, if possible. The small floating plants haven't been doing very good. I even released the duckweed from their little basket, and a lot of it's like dead or dying back. It does look like it's growing, but it looks like it's also dying a lot too. So I don't know if that's just the time of the year, or it's just sort of dying back, or if it's too hot during the day, or what the case may be. But yeah, I was really surprised by this. I know duckweed is very hardy. I know it grows very rapidly, but this stuff isn't doing the best. So kind of interesting to see that. We do have a little dwarf banana plant here. Give it some water. Again, this is like a closeout, so the leaves are not in very good shape, but you can see there are some new leaves growing, a new stalk that's growing. So I don't know, we'll see. I kill plants. That's one that I would definitely need to take inside during the winter, so it may not live, but you know, you never know. So the rest of the plants out here are doing fine. Oh, this is a big thing. We need to get bulkheads installed in here. Now that the tank is full of water, the next thing we need to focus on here is plumbing. We need to get the plumbing installed up here. I want to be able to dump water in one of these bins, have it go over through a bulkhead, and then spill back down into that tank. That's the next step. So the thing that I needed to do now is figure out what size bulkhead I needed. So I got a couple Lifeguard Aquatics bulkheads. I got a 3/4 inch bulkhead, and I got a 1/2 inch bulkhead. The 3/4 inch bulkhead is just barely too big to fit on these Laguna tubs, and this hole was pre-drilled in these Laguna tubs. So I could sand this hole down a little bit to accept this 3/4 inch bulkhead, but I also went ahead and picked up the 1/2 inch bulkhead just so I could see, because I knew the hole was right on the edge between the two sizes, and the 1/2 inch bulkhead fits great. So I think what I'll do is pick up a bunch more of the 1/2 inch Lifeguard bulkheads and install those on all of these tubs. And then what will happen is I'll probably get a little overflow screen on those to make sure they don't get clogged up. I'll run some sort of drain line plumbing across, down, and then I do have this space here where I could put some sort of mechanical filtration system in, and then what will happen is that line will go under the ground here and then out here and drain into our giant tank. So that's what we've got going on in the greenhouse. Let's go back outside one last time to take a look at this thing. It has been a lot of work to get this in the ground, to get it full of water. Next, we just need to plumb it up and get it operational. Now, when it comes to a pump, this is the question I have. I basically have two options. I can run it on AC power, which means it's getting power from the house, or I could run it on DC power, which means it's getting its power from a battery. And if you guys recall, the Chop and Flip Aquaponics 55-gallon test barrel system that I put together last year, I had one solar panel running and powering one battery, and that battery was powering one little DC pump, which was able to handle one little chop and flip aquaponics bed. Now, this is obviously a much larger system, and the question I have is, what direction should I go here for this pump? If I go with AC, it means I'm running a power line out here from the house. I really don't want to do that for the entire year. Obviously the pump is going to be turned off during the winter, but we don't have electrical out in this shed, and I don't think we ever will. So running an extension cord from the house for 3 seasons out of the year sounds a little sketchy, but it would be the easiest method to power this pump. The alternative is the solar and the battery system, and that's where we run into, I guess, a question of cost, because a big enough DC pump, battery powered pump, to pump water essentially just like 8 to 10 feet up and over into this greenhouse, to get enough water flowing through a pump at a head height of that size, I would probably need at least 3 solar panels, maybe 4, depending on how much sunlight it's actually getting. And I'll need a battery bank system to store extra energy, extra power, and I need to put that in the greenhouse somewhere. And that's the biggest expense, because if I want a pump, a large pump, to pump 24 hours a day, even when it's cloudy, for a week at a time, I could be talking about 10 or 20 batteries, and that is a huge expense. So will that happen? I don't know. You know, like, is it the end of the world if, you know, I don't have enough solar panels and the pump stops at night? I don't know. You know, like the batteries, they can't drain more than 50%, otherwise they start getting damaged. So you know, you basically have to double the number that you think you need. Anyways, there's a big expense there. There's a big decision that needs to happen there. So that would be my question to you guys, is what direction do you think I should go for that pump, AC versus DC? And what kind of fish belong in this tank year round? Well, let me know your thoughts on that. Let me know your thoughts on that. I've been working all day. It's Labor Day. It's hot outside. And the next thing I'm going to do is jump in this tank.
Alright guys, and that's gonna do it for us for today. I feel like we got a lot accomplished out here. The entire tank is full and ready to go. So next week we are going to focus on getting our first fish in this tank outside and figuring out all of our plumbing to spill water from the Laguna tubs in the greenhouse down here out into this pond. I think it's going to take a few days for this water to warm up. I didn't expect it to be so cold, but it did come straight out of the tap today. So extremely cold water. We'll let that warm up and then we'll get some fish in. Stick around, come back next week for another video to see what goes in here and how all of this plumbing starts to get hooked up. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys later.